Hello and welcome, fantastic grade 4s. Good to have you along with us for another lesson of maths. Today we are going to look at the concept of probability, the likelihood that something will happen. If you would like to email me, it's grade4@worksheetcloud.com. I'm Mr. T or Mr. Travis. After the lesson, click on the link above, do the worksheet, make sure that you've got this. This is something that comes up again and again in primary school, gets a little bit more complicated as you go, but we're going to get the basics in place today. The next slide, as per normal, is your mental arithmetic. I've picked a different times table today, although it's not in order. You'll have 40 seconds. You just need to put the answer for each question. Do as many as you can, but focus is accuracy and then speed. You have about 4 seconds per problem. And your 40 seconds start now. Halfway there. Time's up. So I've picked the 5 times table today. Let's go through our answers. Remember, you're just marking it right. If you got it right, and don't worry about it if you got it wrong. As long as you're improving, that's all that we can ask. So 5 times 6 is 30. 5 times 9 is 45. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 5 is 25. 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times 3 is 15. And 5 times 11 is 55. If you missed any of the answers, just rewind. Watch the video, from the start again, and just make sure that you got it right. Okay, probability today. Probability is the likelihood something is going to happen. So let's first off start with our lesson goals. So first up, I want you to understand what probability is, understand that we have different ways of representing probability, be able to make use of the words impossible, likely, unlikely, even, certain, as a way of describing possibility. Also be able to represent probability as a fraction and be able to work out the simple probability as a fraction of something happening. So probability is the chance that something will happen. We can represent it as a word, like the certain, or certain, uncertain, likely, unlikely, even, as a fraction or as a percentage. You might have heard the weather report saying there's a 60% chance of rain tomorrow. That's an example of probability in real life. So where we would use words, for example, the weather report says, for example, that tomorrow is going to probably rain. So if there's a good chance of rain, I can say it's likely that it will rain tomorrow. If it's not likely to rain, I could say it's unlikely to rain. If it's about 50-50, I'd say there's an even chance of rain tomorrow. What I could do, if it was today and it was already raining outside, then I could say that it's certain it's going to rain. So that's an example of that. We could sort of, for example, talk about flipping a coin and say that the chances of getting ahead are 50, or 50-50, 50% chance of getting ahead, or 1 out of 2, or we could say it's an even chance of getting one or the other, meaning that we're as likely to get it as we are unlikely to get it. Someone might ask you, what is the chance that your teacher will wear shoes tomorrow to school? And if your teacher generally wears shoes and very seldom, or you've never seen your teacher not wearing shoes, then you could say it's certain that your teacher will wear shoes, or highly likely, probable that your teacher will be wearing shoes. Okay, so we can use these words with impossible, meaning it definitely can't happen. What's the possibility that I will wake up with 3 arms tomorrow? That's impossible. Now, some of you might be thinking to books that you've read where strange things happen, but in the real world, I think we could safely say it's impossible that I'm going to wake up with three arms tomorrow. Likely and unlikely, that's where it's like a better chance that it is going to happen, but not for sure. And certain is something that's definitely going to happen. So there's no doubt, there's no way it can't happen. It's definitely going to happen. Then we've got as a percentage, which I've mentioned with the rain and that sort of thing. We're not going to deal too much with this because at grade 4 level you haven't really done percentages. So percentage is a form of a fraction that's always out of 100. You might have seen the percentage on a test you've done at school where someone said, oh, you did really well, you got 80% or something like that. Those are percentages, but I haven't really dealt with them, so I'm not going to go too much into that. Then we've got a fraction, and this is how we're going to look at it mostly. And we represent it like this. So think of this as a fraction line down the middle. So how many chances and all the possibilities. So let's think, for example, of a dice. If I was looking at what's the chance of me rolling a 1, and we're going to assume that it's a fair dice and not a cheating dice. But let's say it's got 6 sides, and I'm asking what is the chance that it's going to be a 1. So how many 1s are there on a dice? Well, there's 1, 1. So that means how many chances are there? There's 1. And all the possibilities, how many different numbers are there on a dice? There's 6. So the chance of me rolling a 1 are 1 in 6. So 1 on top and 6 on the bottom. Numerator 1, denominator 6. But I might also ask, what's the chance of me rolling a 5? Well, how many 5s are there? There's only 1. So again, it would be 1 on top. How many sides to the dice? There's 6. So the chances are 1 in 6 of getting a 5. Right. Let's jump across to the whiteboard and probability. So there's certain things that you are likely to come across in probability. One of them is a dice. So if I think of a dice, let me draw the dice. It's not a very good drawing of a dice, but let's accept. In fact, no, let's not. Let's be better than that. So I'm going to go there. That's a bit better. Not great. Oops. I'm doing the dotted line at the back because we can't see it so well. Well, it's actually hidden behind the dice. But there's my dice, my see-through dice. On this front side, I can have a 1. On this close side, I can have a 2. And on the top, I can have a 3. If any of you have a dice handy, it's quite a fun thing to know that the opposite sides of a dice always add up to 7. So on the other side from the 2, I'll do this in pink so you can see it's the back. On the other side from the 2 is the 5, because 2 and 5 is 7. On the other side from the 1 is the 6. So 1 and 6 is 7. And on the other side from the 4, so the bottom of the dice, from the 3 is a 4. So you can see in my very messy dice, which is see-through, that each of the opposite pairs lines up and makes 7. Okay, so I've got my 6 sides to my dice. And a dice is something that's going to come up quite often in probability. And I might ask, what is the chance of rolling a 4? All right, so we first up ask how many of the sides of the dice are a 4. Well, there's only one 4 on a dice. So it's 4. And how many sides does the dice have altogether? That's where our denominator comes. So the chance of rolling a 4 is 1 in 6. If I asked something like, what is the chance of rolling an even number? Remember that an even number is a number that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. But obviously we don't have all of those on a dice. So how many even numbers are there on a dice? Well, there's 2, 4, and 6. So there's 3 even numbers. All right, and how many sides of a dice are there? Well, there's still 6 because we're looking at a 6-sided dice. You do get other numbers of sides on a dice, like you get a 4-sided dice and an 8-sided dice and a 10-sided dice and even a 12 and a 20-sided dice. But we're looking at a normal 6-sided dice here. So we've got 3 out of 6. If you remember from when we were doing fractions, you can simplify that. You can say that 3 goes into 3 once and 3 goes into 6 twice. And so, in fact, our chances of rolling an even number are 1 in 2. So if you roll the dice, the chances are 1 out of every 2 times you roll the dice, you're going to get an even number. That doesn't mean that if you've rolled an even number the one time, then the next time you're going to get an odd, or the other way around. But over a long period of time, if you roll the dice, say 100 times, it's going to be very close to 50-50 for even numbers and odd numbers. Okay. I could ask, what is the chance of rolling a 4 or a 5? No, actually, let's say it's a 6 or a 5. So maybe you have to get a 6 or 5 to win your game of Risk. What's the chance of getting a 6 or 5? So what's the chance of you winning in this case? Well, the dice still has 6 sides. How many options are there that will be what you're looking for? Well, there's a 5 and a 6, so that's 2. So 2 over 6, which simplifies. So 2 goes into there once, 2 goes into there 3 times. So the chances of you winning are 1 in 3. All right, so that's a relatively good chance. It's better than 1 in 6. All right, one more quick one. On this side of the dice, what is the chance of rolling a 7? So, what do you think the chances of rolling a 7 are? Well, how many sides of the dice are there that have a 7? None. It doesn't appear on a dice. So 0 out of 6. And this is an example of an impossibility. So this is definitely not going to happen. This is impossible. An impossible outcome for rolling the dice is getting a 7 on a 6-sided dice. Okay, another one that comes up quite regularly is the there's spinners come up. So I don't know, I'm sure you've played one of those games where you have a spinner. It's one of those round things with the arrow in the middle that you flick and you see which way it ends up facing, and your board is divided up into different colors. Like that, or sometimes it's got numbers on it. That's a spinner. Those things come up quite often. Again, you've just got to see how many ones there are. So there are 8 in this particular board. So there are 8 spaces, and I could say, what's the chance of you landing on yellow? And there are 2 yellows, so it'd be 2 in 8. Or if one of these yellows was actually a blue, a light blue, I could say, what's the chance of getting a light blue? Well, it's 1 out of 8. So again, you just look at how many spaces there are on the spinner, and the space that all of the spaces is the number at the bottom, the denominator, and the ones that you're trying to get, that will be your number on top. That's not actually where I was going. I'm going to look at a coin. So a coin is the one that also comes up quite frequently, and a coin has either a heads or a tails. So I'm actually not sure how many of you know this. I've got some coins over here. I hope you can see. Some people are not always sure which is heads and which is tails. In fact, it's the one at the back of the coin, which now has the crest of South Africa. That's the old crest of South Africa. This coin is from 1989. So you can see it. Sure, I was young back in 1989. I was only 8. All right, so that is the crest of South Africa on the back of those coins. But prior to there being a crest on the back of the coins, there used to be a picture of the president or of the king, but of the head of state. And often it was a picture of the person's head. and that is the head of state, or the picture of the head, and that is the side that is heads. So don't get confused. This is heads, not shining in the light. Okay, so that's heads, and tails is the other side of the coin. And you might, although it's the head of an animal, you can think an animal has a tail, but not all coins have animals on the front. This one is a commemorative coin for environmental rights. So this one doesn't have a tail on it, but tails is the front of the coin with the numbers on it, and heads is the back of the coin, the other one. So when it comes to flipping a coin, the chances of it landing on one side or the other is 50-50. So if I was to flick that coin, the chance of being a head are 1 out of 2. The chance of being a tail, also 1 out of 2. It's a tail. And some people use that silly saying, tails never fails, which of course is rubbish, because often you get tails. So with a coin, there are 2 possible outcomes, either heads or tails. And if you're looking for one of them, well, then you've got 1 out of 2, or a half, 50 chance. It does get a little interesting. I'm doing a sort of step out to the side a little bit over here. And this is more grade 5 work than grade 4 work. But if I asked you, if you flipped this coin, if you flipped a coin twice, or in fact, if I flipped 2 coins, what are the chances of me getting 2 heads? Well, let's say rather 1 coin flipped twice. On the first flip, let's do that on the side right. So first flip, I could either get a head or a tail. On this, let's assume that I've now got a head or a tail. On my second flip, in fact, so we got a head, we went green. In my second flip, having got a head already, I could now get a head or a tail. So if I'd followed this path down, I would have got a head and then another head. If I'd gone this way down, I would have got a head and then a tail. All right, having got a tail in the first round, I could then have got either a head or a tail in the second one. If I'd followed this path, I would have got tails and then heads. And if I'd followed this path, I would have got tails and then tails. All right, now these, if we're not worried about the order, are 1 head and 1 tail. So the chance of getting 1 head and 1 tail would be 2 out of 4, or if we simplify that, 1 out of 2. But the chance of getting 2 heads, well, there were 4 possible outcomes. Only one of those was 2 heads, so the chance of getting 2 heads in a row is 1 in 4. The chance of getting 2 tails in a row is also 1 in 4. Right. So that's quite fun. But, and this is maybe where it gets a little bit confusing. If you have flipped a coin and you've got a head, what is the chance that your next one is going to be a tail? It's still 1 flip of the coin, so the next chance is still going to be a half of a head or a half of a tail. It could be one or the other. All right, it does sometimes get confusing if you think so you think, well, the next one should be a tail, but it's not how it works. In any single flip of the coin, the chances are 50-50. Okay, so a coin is 1 out of 2. I'm not going to do that. That's grade 5 work for sure. The other one that I've seen come up a lot is a deck of cards. Now, a deck of cards, they will normally exclude the jokers for this. A deck of cards is made up of 52 cards. So there are 52 cards, and in a deck of cards, there are 4 suits. So there's, excuse my drawing, looks a little bit like a 3-leaf clover, or clover, most of them are 3 leaves, which is called clubs. Then we have another one, which is spades, which looks a little bit like an upside down heart. All right, I've actually done these in the wrong colors. So those are the 2 suits that are black. Let's color that over in black. All right, the other 2 suits are red. I know my red looks a little bit pink, but it's called red on the app. If you look, you can see. says red, although it looks a little bit pink to me. Okay, so the next one we've got is diamonds. And diamonds looks a little bit like that. I'm sure their diamonds look better than mine. And the final one is hearts, which looks like a heart. Hearts. So we've got these three different suits. Oopsie, still on drawing. Let's move up so we've just got that. Okay, now in each of these, there are 13 cards. So that 52 divided by 4 gives me 13. All right, so in each of those, there are 13 cards. And those cards go from 1, which is called an ace. Let me do it to the side. So an ace. Then we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So each of the different suits has this. And then we've got 3 picture cards in each of them. We've got a jack, a queen, and a king. All right, so each of the suits have that. So if I asked you, whoopsie, if I asked you what is the chance of me getting, or if I put all of the cards out in front of me, what is the chance of me drawing an ace of spades? Well, there is only one ace of spades, all right? And so 1 out of 52 would be my answer. So 1 out of 52. Right, because there's only one ace of spades. But if I asked, what's the chance of me drawing any ace? So that means any ace from any of the suits. Well, there's 1 for each of them. There's 1 for each of these, which comes to a total of 4 out of 52. And that simplifies, because 4 goes into there once and 4 goes into there 13 times, 1 in 13, which kind of makes sense because you've got 1 in each of these suits. So that would be, if you were looking at the probability of drawing any ace. But then you get interesting questions like, what's the chance of drawing a heart? So any of the hearts. Well, there are 13 hearts, and there are 52 cards. And if I simplify that, 13 goes into there once, 13 goes into there twice, 4 times. So the chance of me drawing any heart is 1 in 4. If I ask what's the chance of me drawing a red card, well, half the cards are red, so that'd be 1 in 2. And then there's other variations, like what's the chance of me drawing a red picture card? So remember, those are the picture cards down there, Jack, Queen, and King. There's 3 in diamonds and 3 in hearts, so that's a total of 6. So 6 would be how many? And out of 52, and then I've got to simplify. I can see that 2 goes into there 3 times, and 2 goes into there 26 times. So then my chances of getting a red picture card are 3 out of 26. So if I was to draw any card from a deck, then on average over a long time, 3 out of every 26 times I drew, I'd get a picture red. I'd get a picture red card. Right, so it's just variations on a theme, but the important thing to remember is for any probability, all you've got to do is see what's my total deck with the cards. It's always going to be 52. They generally leave out jokers. And then you've got to see how many are the possibilities that I can get. All right, so if I was looking for a 2, how many 2s are there? Well, there are 4. If I was looking for a red 2, well, there are only 2 red 2s. If I was looking for a 2 of diamonds, there's only 1 2 of diamonds. So each time, all you're doing is you're having a look at the top number, and that's how many, this is the one, how many that you're looking for, that you're, say, wanting. So that's the one you want, and that's the total. And each time when you've got that, you just simplify it, which we practiced with our fractions lesson, which you can go back and find on WorksheetCloud. You can look for fractions, equivalent fractions, and simplifying. You'll find it. Yeah, and that's really what probability is about. So at this point in grade 4, you're pretty much always going to be asked to represent your your probability as a fraction, not as a percentage. But you might also be asked things like to use the words like certainty, likely. That's these words here. So impossible and certain are the ones that you would like definitely know for sure. Even means it could go either way. Likely means it's more probably going to be certain. It's closer to certain than 50-50, and unlikely it's closer to impossible than 50-50. So those are that's the probability that we're going to do today. This is the key thing. So when we represent it as a fraction, how many we want, and what are all the what's the total out of, right? And if you can do that, then you're going to have probability waxed. So just a reminder, if you want to email me, it's Mr. T. You can email me grade4@WorksheetCloud.com. And after the lesson, click on that link above, because practice, that is how we learn maths. All right, I hope that you're continuing to practice your times table. I hope that your mental arithmetic is getting better and better each lesson. And I hope to see you again soon. Have a fantastic day, grade 4s.